What's up, everyone? I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and welcome to another episode of The Right Mindset. Today, I am bringing you a special guest. I have known him far too long, I would think, and he has gotten me into loving hats for some reason. I don't know why. I even forgot my hat today, and he's probably going to be very angry at it. I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Stevie GB, comic and entrepreneurial of the screenplays and stage shows. Stevie, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you before we get started?
Sure. Well, I've been doing comedy for over 26 years, not just comedy, but theater. I've written 12 one-act plays, a full-length musical. I've done one-man shows, one about a tribute to Groucho Marx, the iconic comedian, and two that I wrote about my life story, Welcome to Long Island, and You're Never Too Old to Be Immature. So that's what I do. I love to write. I love to create. And most of the stuff I do, I don't do anything with it, which really frustrates me. I've written a sitcom, which means nothing to anybody. But, I've written a lot of one-act plays that I was actually able to produce in New York City. So that's exciting.
Now, are you personally on strike right now? Well, the Writers Guild is on strike.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing with the writers on strike. Yeah. If they were really serious about being on strike, they should be holding up blank picket signs.
Because they shouldn't be writing.
They shouldn't be writing picket signs either. Just go out there and say, we're not writing anything at this point.
It's like, the thing is, as a writer, they're allowed to write. They just can't accept from the larger studios.
Yeah, well, there's a contract disputes. The writers always really are stand-up comedy is the bottom of the barrel. And I feel like writers are probably like holding the barrel up. So it's like,
they're the most important, though. They're the foundation of any entertainment that we do.
You would think,
right?
But they do get, there is a lack of respect for the writers, but that's just, I guess that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. When you write a script, especially like a film or something like that, you can, even on the lower end, you can see $30,000, $40,000, or even $50,000 for the first draft or even the first third. So, they do deserve that kind of pay, because I know that the residuals for a television show, when it was like on CBS, when something like that, like their residual could be anywhere from 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, or 6,000, whereas with Netflix and streaming, it's a couple hundred, if not less, and that's where the dispute is going, and that's part of one of the few reasons.
I didn't know that. I guess it's the same thing like Spotify is ripping off musicians. Whether they get like 1/10 of 1 penny.
Correct. Yeah. Well, if they go through a record label, because the record label has a deal with them and blah blah blah. I actually do it through a third party distributor, so I get a large chunk of the as if I'm a record label, because I created a business and then I created the account with the business. So they give me benefit as if I was a record label, and it works out.
That's smart. That's a smart way to do it.
You know me. I'm a business guy.
You definitely are. You're very resourceful and ambitious and all of those other nice words.
Let me look some of those up. Let
me get my thesaurus.
I stay away from them. They're scary with their little arms. All right.
Yeah, I always thought it was a thesaurus, a dinosaur, or similar to it. I'm not sure.
Do you think they'd be bad at Scrabble? It'd be like, that's not a word. And be like, rawr. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
That's very true. That's very true. T-Rex. Yeah. How many? What are you going to get? 12 points, if that?
Are you saying if he has a T, he wrecks?
Yeah, maybe if it was TWRECKS, that might make more sense.
I see what you're doing. You're adding some letters into there.
Sure.
W is silent in this example.
Should we check the Scrabble dictionary? But we went off on a tangent.
There's a lot of words you and I couldn't use in Scrabble because we don't know what's real and what's not real today.
That's very true.
Right. Do you cheat on Scrabble like I do? Like before you start playing, you add a couple words to the dictionary?
No, I haven't played. I can't remember the last time I actually played Scrabble because my grandmother died. So,
I'm sorry for your loss.
No, that's okay. But, it makes Thanksgiving a lot easier. Now we don't have to see anybody. So that's the good thing about the dead grandmas.
Oh, you just leave like a sheet over or something, or?
No. We don't have to go because, everybody went to Thanksgiving because grandma required it. Now that grandma's gone, there's like no reason to see anybody.
Do you ignore holidays and just work on your writing?
Yeah, no, I like holidays. I enjoy seeing people, but it's that it's like becoming weddings, funerals, and Christmas. It's pretty much,
You're at that age.
yeah, we get to that point.
Which one are you enjoying more? Be honest.
I haven't been to many weddings. I've been to a few too many funerals, which are no fun. I guess Christmas is probably at the top of that list.
See, at funerals, when I go, I collect the money because I got the days right. You get those like blocks. It's like you're playing a game. Like, oh, they're gonna die in June to August.
Wow,
I want my,
wow! It's like gambling.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I tell people I appreciate these people. Like when I go up and I do their eulogy, I'm just like, thanks for dying on this date. You're helping me pay my bills this month.
I won $10. That kind
Yeah,
of thing.
I've always appreciated, what's his name? So
Wow.
you don't do that? You're a writer. I figured you take
No, no,
advantage of
I
it.
like it though. I like it.
You do? You do? So you're a writer, but this show isn't dedicated to just authors or novelists or screenwriters, but in a sense, you're a screenwriter because you do your stage shows. Like you said, you wrote a musical. But more importantly, you're a stand-up comedian, and your comedy is a mixture of telling stories, which is something that would be scripted out, and also badum dum chkas jokes, where
Yeah.
it's like set up punchline, which isn't a negative thing. It's just they are different formats of writing. But I like that you mix the two into your performances. So with that said, to prepare the audience
Hmm.
for the conversation. What is your writing process in general when it just comes to creating the story within your performance?
Well, I don't really sit down and write like maybe some like you should. I have creative surges. Like I'll go through a surge where I'm just like all of a sudden stuff's just pouring out of me. And I take advantage of those times. And that's when I do most of my writing. It's just like I feel it coming on. And most of my writing is in my head. Like I'm just walking around thinking or interacting with other people, talking to my daughter, anything that inspires me. Watching a sitcom on TV and saying, "Boy, this is so terrible. I could write this better," and coming up with a better idea. So all of that it floats around in my head for a while,
Yeah.
and then if I'm lucky enough to remember it, as I'm getting older, it's getting harder because I'm losing my short-term memory. Did I tell you that already? Uh,
Yeah, I think so.
that's
And
a
by the
that's
way,
a funny
again, you
it's
told me to
a funny
remind you
joke.
earlier. I'm
That's a
Thomas.
funny joke right there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it kind of sticks around in my head. And then I actually I write it in my phone. I'm like, I'm very
How do
new
you see
wave.
it?
I write it in my phone. I got notes and tons of notes, and I'll write like a premise or a couple of words to hopefully remember what the whole joke is.
Yeah.
And then I play around with it. When I get on stage, I kind of throw it out there,
Now,
see
what
if
if
it
you don't have a
works.
stage to play around with it? Do you throw it off of people? Do you have fellow comedian friends where you go, "Hey, let's
No,
do some"?
the
Well,
the worst thing I've ever done is sit
talk
around a bunch of comedians and write jokes. It's very difficult. I find it very difficult to work with comedians because they have to be funnier than me. It's like not that I mean that's almost impossible anyway, but um, it becomes a competition, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
becomes
yeah.
you can't do that. George
That's not how
Carlin
I
did
would
that
do it.
in 19. Oh, there's a guy in Ohio that does the same joke. It's like, come on. We're all kind of thinking the same things. There's not a lot of subject matter. We're
Yeah,
all going to kind of that parallel thinking thing going on. I don't steal material. I try to keep it personal because
yeah.
I'm the funniest accountant. I haven't had too much competition there. Uh,
Well, you and
I talk
Ellen,
about myself, getting older, being married. Yeah, other people talk about getting older and being married too, but I think I try to personalize it a little bit so it becomes me more than everybody.
Yeah, that's why I left
So,
the comedy scene because I would talk about
yeah,
brushing my teeth, and people like I talk about brushing my teeth, and I'm just
yeah,
like, oh, all right,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I would do
It's-
a joke about Coles, and someone would say, "I do a Coles joke." It's like, okay, so that's like saying, I do a joke about being married. Okay,
what do you
it
do? Are
was
you
like,
even married?
yeah, there's
Nah,
40,000 comedians who do the same kind of. Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. So,
It's a very
yeah,
difficult. Now, you know me. I live by the teamwork mentality. Like I'm always like trying to bring people together, but the thing about the comedy scene, it almost feels like exactly what you're saying is you have to kind of push everyone away to feel like you're being heard because everyone wants to talk over you. They want to tell you how
Yeah.
to tell your jokes. And
Right. When's my turn to tell my story? If you sit around in a room with comedians, everybody's like feeding jokes. What do you think of this joke? What do you think of that joke? And I found that while I'm telling them my material, they're writing. They're either stealing my jokes
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
they're just writing down what they want to talk about. It because it's a meeting of narcissists. So it's not. There's no teamwork.
There's a lot
Now,
of confidence.
yeah. Now I joined a writing group at a library, which was very interesting because everybody was writing novels and I was
Yeah.
writing a play or a screenplay or something. And we took our turns and that was good too. But what I didn't like about it is the person that was running it was so obsessed with grammar that, it just like took all the fun out of it.
Yeah, because
Because
people
when you're
talk with
writing
perfect
when
grammar.
I'm writing a play, a one man show, I'm not concerned about grammar because I'm telling a story. So I could say like, I was on the yard the other day and this happened and that happened, and she's like, "No, well, you can't do the
No, no, no.
subject and the predicate and the." I'm like, "What?"
It depends. If you're doing first person point of view, but with a play, especially if it's a one man play, it's first person point of view. So the grammar is based on the characters'
Right,
lexicon or their how they work their words or where they come from or the syntax. Like all that is based on character, not some omniscient god telling the narrative like it usually is in third person or third person omniscient or limited.
right, exactly. It's not You're not writing a novel, and writing a play, which I enjoy. Most of the plays I wrote, my 12 one acts, most of them, with the exception of two or three, are two people. And I enjoy that in one room. So
Yeah.
what I like about that, number one, it's very easy to do. So when I would sell it to somebody else to do it, that's my favorite. I've done three things. I've written and directed and performed in my plays. I've written and directed my plays. And the third thing, which I love to do, is I give it to somebody else. And I don't even want to, I don't want to be involved. Don't even call and ask me a question.
Yeah.
Just take it and interpret it the way you read it. And I just want to be in the audience and watch it. And
Unless it's
that's
your
the most
jokes.
fun because when I do that, I sit there and I go, wow, what the hell? I think I'm mentally ill. This is what they saw in my writing. There's something wrong with me. But
Yeah.
yeah, either that or I'm pleasantly surprised, or it brings on a whole new level of understanding and
Well, art
it's
is interpretative,
interesting.
right?
Yeah,
So, how you write it, your intention. But again, you could also have clarity of content. So if you're writing a very specific thing and they're like, why do these characters hate each other so much? And they end up
right.
together. You're like, oh, I thought it was like,
Yeah. And
enemies to
sometimes they don't
lovers.
get it at all. They don't
Yeah.
get it at all. I wrote one play. It was called Number One with a Bullet. And this was a serious one. Not all of them are comedies. And it's about two brothers arguing over politics. And it
Hmm.
had nothing to do with, we didn't mention names. Didn't matter. And it was basically about guns. And, it was a very political thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of wrote it from a conservative point of view because I'm not embarrassed to say where I stand. But
Yeah.
the person that directed and did it took the other side. And I was like,
Oh.
that that's completely the opposite of what I wrote. But it was interesting because what she did was I didn't see it that way, but it was interesting because I saw how wow, you can interpret something completely the opposite of the way the author intended, and it still works. So I
Yeah.
like that.
And I think that's an interesting way to kind of approach art in general, where it's like, well, I
Yeah,
have the original piece and I've done the original piece. So it's okay if somebody just kind of takes it and remakes it in their image, because if I want to
yeah,
enjoy the original, I can. It's there, it exists.
exactly.
Now, you're okay with people taking your creative endeavors when it comes to your scripts and stuff, but not your comedy. So if someone went up there and go, so anyway, as an
Yeah,
accountant and
yeah,
living my life as Stevie GB, and they're like,
right.
you're like that, you're not even Stevie GB, and you're like, well, it's in
Yeah,
this. I copied it while you were telling the joke, so
right. Yeah,
uh,
it wouldn't work, first of all. And there's some, to me, if somebody's stealing your jokes, it's probably an easy joke. It's probably a joke that anybody could have written. I mean, I try to shy away from the obvious, try not to
yeah.
be so obvious.
So
but it's
you don't do
hard.
jokes about family or kids or
Well, I do, but they're
toothbrushes.
specific to me, and yeah, you don't want to do jokes about Starbucks, or there's certain subjects that you want to stay away from because it's been done to death. What
Yeah.
do they call it? Hack. I hate that
Hack.
word.
Well, wouldn't
Hack.
everything be hack at this point? Because
Yeah,
people
of
are like, you know
course.
what the difference between men and women is? Like hack. You know what it is about being in a terrible relationship? Hack. You know what it's like, masturbating? Hack. Right. So like what is really hack? Because sometimes you'll see a famous comedian, someone who's successful and has earned their merit, and they're doing what would be. I mean, George Carlin did puns, and to me, that made me the happiest man in the world because I love wordplay. And people are
Yeah.
like, you can't do puns. It's the lowest form of comedy. And you're like,
No,
it's not. It's highly intelligent comedy, but it comes off as hack because it's simple.
because it's been done so much, and yeah, you're right. It's but it's to me, stand-up comedy doesn't get the proper respect. I got no respect, but because it really is
Who's that?
hard. And I don't know if you know Uncle Floyd. Remember Uncle
Yeah.
Floyd?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
I've opened for him a number of times, and I idolize him. I respect him greatly. And he said to me backstage when he said, people don't realize how hard it is to be a comedian. Everything we do is original. We can't do covers. We're not
Yeah.
like a cover
Yeah.
band. We got to write stuff. We got to think. We got to perform it. We got to perfect it. We got to get the same laughs everywhere we go. People don't realize how hard that is and how smart you have to be to do it. Yet it's viewed as like, oh, you're a comedian. Oh, yeah, I could tell a joke. And actually, the other guy who I adore is Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
And Jon Stewart said something, I don't know, remember where on a talk show, but it made perfect sense. He nailed it. He said, the problem with stand-up comedy is people don't consider it talent. Like when you go see an opera singer or somebody playing
Yeah.
classical piano, people are like, wow, that's talent. But when you see somebody telling the joke, it's like, my brother-in-law can tell jokes. I can tell jokes. They don't consider it at the same level of talent as a musician. And
Yeah.
it's 100% true. And it's kind of unfortunate.
Well, the art form itself is not just I wrote something. It's trying it out. It's taking risks. It's putting yourself out there. It's meeting strangers every night. Like when you're hanging out with your friends, they're laughing because you have an
Right.
understanding with each other, and
Right.
you have to come on
Being
stage.
funny at Aunt Mabel's barbecue is much different than being funny on stage.
Exactly. And a lot of the times comedians around other comedians, it's difficult because they have these split moments where they want to say something from something, but then they kind of hold themselves back sometimes because they're like, I don't want them to think I'm working a joke. And then you get those anxieties, and then you're like, this person always has to make a joke, and you're like, well, this is why I got into comedy, is because I
Yeah.
have to make a joke about everything,
Yeah.
or I go crazy.
Plus, the outside world, the civilians, your family and friends automatically assume because you're a comedian that you can take a joke. It's like, oh, I can make fun of you. You're a comedian. I'm like, yeah, I'm also a human being and I'm very sensitive. And comedians are even more sensitive than average human beings because we're deranged and
Yeah.
depressed and have issues. And that's why we stand up in front of strangers and try to make them laugh because we're not normal people. So stop picking on us. Damn it.
Well, that's why I like get-togethers. I tell them, I go, look, before you make fun of me, I just want you to know, the more you make fun of me, and the more you hurt me, the more you're going to be a part of my act.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's your choice.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough.
Do you find comedy less thrilling nowadays, and you're leaning more towards, say, script writing and stage shows because of that scene, because of that energy?
Not so much the scene or the energy, but you're funny you say that. But for the first time in forever, a couple of weeks ago, my wife had to remind me that I had a gig coming up. That has never happened. I've always been like, oh, show time. This is a show week. Yeah, tomorrow's my show. Today's the show. I forgot that I
Yeah.
had the gig, and that really scared me because it made me realize I'm not feeling it anymore, and
Mhm.
that's a very sad feeling, and it has nothing to do with the scene or because I'm over that. I'm over the whole. I if you could, here's okay. You're gonna like this.
Go ahead,
I
Steve.
came up with this: the 5 stages of comedy. The
Okay.
5 stages of comedy. You ready?
Hmm.
First stage, awakening. Oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to be. I finally figured it out. Right?
Yep.
Stage two, delusion. I'm going to be a star. I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be the greatest comedian ever. Right?
Hmm.
Stage three, disillusion. This business sucks. I don't get it. What's going on here? I'm good. It's not happening for me.
Hmm.
Stage four, bitterness. Why him and not me?
Oh
I'm
yeah.
funnier than him. Why is he on stage in that place and I'm not? Very dangerous stage. Stage five, acceptance. I love it. I'm going to do it. I don't care what happens. And that's when you get good. Because when
Yeah.
you go up there and you don't care anymore, that's when you're free. You're
Oh
free
yeah.
of all the who's watching me and what am I going to do better and how am I going to write this? How am I going to get bigger laughs? You go up there and you're like, I know what I'm doing. I know my act. I'm going to do it. If these people don't laugh, it's their problem. And I don't mean to sound arrogant, but it
Yeah.
really is kind of a sense of you arrived. And that's when you get better because you realize you're free from all of that pressure.
Yeah, and Louis
Like that?
C.K. Actually emphasizes what you were basically saying. Is there's a
Yeah,
certain point where you go on stage and you're just like, your voice comes out because you don't care, and you're like, I want to have fun doing this,
right.
and this is what I want to talk about. And he said there was a joke, and I don't remember the joke, but he was on a talk show and he's talking about the joke, and it was the first time he kind of just said it, and he didn't mean to say it. It was just he was just having a moment on stage and he just decided to talk about it, and he felt so fulfilled
Yeah,
afterwards, even with
yeah.
the minimum laughs, because it wasn't really it worked joke, it was an
Right,
idea.
right.
And he was like, I rather be focusing on that, working
Yes,
that thought,
yes.
than how do I write jokes, because I don't
Right.
want to write jokes, I want to.
Exactly. When you go up there and in the beginning, every comedian does this and there's nothing wrong with it. You write down, word for word, and then you're up there and reciting and you're in your head. What's the next topic? I got to get to that. And there's the next topic. I got to get to that. That's why when a heckler jumps in, your whole brain, your list gets gobulated and you're like, where was I? It's very dangerous to be in that because their concentration is,
Yeah.
it's intense, the focus. And you got to do 5 minutes, you got to do 8 minutes, you got to do, you're worried about your time, you're in your head. But if you have like an hour, if someone says you could do an hour, which I do, it's free. It's like, oh man, I got 47 minutes worth of material, but I could do an hour. Now you could slow down, you could play, you
Hmm.
you know your material well enough that you can throw in something like Louis C.K. probably threw in something that
Yeah.
he didn't even think about until that moment. And I've definitely had things like that where I just come out with something. I don't know where it came from and it works. And I'm like off stage, like, holy crap. I just like wrote a new joke on the fly without
Yeah.
even thinking about it. And I think that's when you arrive as a comedian, when you can get to that level where you're writing spontaneous.
Yeah.
It's not even improv, it's above improv. It's complete freedom.
It's like you
It's
know
like,
your voice when you're working on a script. Like there's
yeah,
a
well, you just
character.
boom, and you don't know where it came from. Sometimes you think maybe I stole that. Maybe that came because I heard it somewhere. But
Yeah.
and that's possible, but it doesn't matter. The fact that you just came out with it without any former preparation, huge,
Yeah.
huge.
And
And
it's a good feeling too,
oh
because again, even if it doesn't necessarily hit, it's
yeah,
like just to be able to fluidly work through an idea without that fear and be like, wow.
right.
uh,
And then
but
be able to go back into your act from that
yeah.
is that skill. That's a real skill. If you can like do that, because a lot of comedians, even myself, if you go off script, you got to figure out how to get back. It's like,
Yeah, like
where was I? Yeah, that's a frightening, frightening thing. To me, the biggest fear I've always had on stage is forgetting something,
yeah.
or doing the same joke twice. Those are the things that you go, oh my God, I hope I don't do that.
Well,
That's the
Louis actually says that what he started doing to challenge himself is once he realized a joke was a closer, he made it the first joke,
Yes.
and
I've
then he
heard
was
him
like,
do that. I've heard him talk about that.
yeah,
And yeah, you can, I've done that where I've mixed up I know what my strong closers are. I got a few. And yeah, I've done that where I've like thrown the closer in the middle. Cause I think it's like that, especially if you're doing a long time, you got to have that sustainability. You want to open strong so they know that you're serious and you're there and
yeah,
they're going to like you immediately. Because it doesn't take long for people to decide whether they like you or not.
yeah,
It's like the first minute and they've made their decision. Yeah, I like this guy. I'm going to keep listening. Or I hate this guy. I'm not going to like anything he says.
yeah,
And audiences will let you know. It's like I find if you do a joke that doesn't work, it takes like 3 more jokes to get them back.
yep, yeah. Especially if
It
your
does.
host comes on and does like their
Especially
routine.
if it's like offensive. If you do a joke about something that they don't want to hear about, it was like they shut down. And you could be
Yeah,
hilarious. They'll be like, I'm still thinking about that joke.
I
I'm
can't
not going
believe he
to laugh
talked
at
about
him.
M&Ms.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
So, you got to have that, you got to know where to put the killers. And it's right at the beginning. And then you can like lax a little bit and then hit them again and then lax and hit them again. So it's kind of like when you go to a rock concert of your
hmm
favorite band, they open up strong and somewhere in the middle, they start doing their new stuff from their new album.
yeah,
Right. Right. And then they go back to the hit. Then they go back to the new album. Then they go back to and they come on the encore with it's the same concept
yeah.
of fluidity and flow. Because people will forgive you if your last joke was a killer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because they leave. That's how they remember you. They go, oh,
Yeah.
they were good. But
Same thing in a movie. Any movie, any film you see, the movie could suck, but if the ending was good, you're like, oh, that was a good ending.
you're like, oh, Schindler was
They don't
pretty
remember
good.
the shit in the
Yeah,
middle.
I like Schindler. He's good. Good.
Yeah, right. He saved them all at the end. So that's
Yeah,
good.
it's pretty good. I can enjoy
Yeah.
the first half of the movie. I was like, this is horrible. This is just evil.
Maybe it opens strong, but somewhere in the middle you get lost in the characters and you're like, who cares? And then it ends good and you're like, oh, that was a good ending.
Oh, the Jewish girl's a civil engineer in real life, and she's trying to explain the
All right.
structure of the car.
You're going into other platforms, but
Well, no, that's in
uh,
Schindler's List.
I know.
That part, she comes over, she's like, we can't work on this, it's gonna fall apart. And they're like, how would you know? She's like, I'm a civil engineer. And they're like, oh. And they start listening to it. She's like,
I remember that part.
yeah, I always thought that was a good part because like literaturely or within the script, it's like we forget because our brains are like they were Jews. And
Yeah.
what happened was they actually had lives and they had all these things, and it really humanized the whole situation.
Yeah.
Oh, puppy, you okay?
Absolutely. How you talking?
Yeah, he's not feeling
I'm
well.
sorry if I'm talking a lot.
It's okay. No. Did you like Schindler's List?
I only saw it once, it was sad and happy and all that. It was a good movie. I liked it from what I remember. Yeah.
It was one of
Maybe I
those
should
movies where
speak.
you're like, I could write this. I could write this.
I don't know about that.
No, you
Yeah, I do watch sitcoms and get angry. I'm like, oh, I can see it coming. I hate when you see it coming, when you see the joke coming, or you know how it's going to end. My wife watched that show. I had to watch it with a million little things. Oh my God, it drove me crazy. It was such lazy writing. I hate lazy. So we're writers, and you probably do the same thing. When you watch something, you
Mhm.
notice the writing.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Right?
yep.
Like to me, Breaking Bad is like the most incredibly written show if you've ever seen it in the history of television. Like I can watch that show and go, this writing is just amazing.
Yeah.
And then the great writing and great acting and great directing, but it starts with the writing. You can have the best actors in the world. If it's a shit script, they're not going to help it at all. And
Yeah,
even the
agreed.
direction, it looks nice, but
There's
it's
only
the
so much
writing.
you could do to a turd, like you're like
Yeah, it's just like the writing is lazy. It's lazy writing, lazy jokes, and obvious situations. At the end, a million little things, they kill off the most beloved character, and I'm like, are they going to kill off the guy everybody loves? That's so hacky, and that's what they did. There's
so
no
you don't like Game of
surprise.
Thrones.
I never watched that. My daughter always tells me to watch that, but
Well, they kill a lot of your favorite characters off.
Well, yeah, again, I don't like that. See, to me, I come from the world like Alfred Hitchcock, he
Never
was the
heard of him.
director, but Psycho opened up the star, the biggest star in Hollywood is the star of the movie, and he kills her in
Yeah,
the first 5 minutes. That's genius.
yeah. She
That's
was upset about
genius.
that. You know that?
What's that?
She was upset about that, and he did
Well,
it.
yeah, I can understand that, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's freaking brilliant because that's like, oh, it's Janet Leigh is in it. We loved her in all these other movies, and she's dead in
It's just
5 minutes. It's like, what happened? It's brilliant.
and you know
And
what's fun
people
about
don't
that
take
scene?
I feel like people don't take chances like that anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it depends. Like there are some movies where you're just like, I didn't see that coming. Where they just
Well, I like that.
like the Departed when they kill, spoiler, Leonardo DiCaprio out of nowhere.
Yes, okay. That's a
You know,
good
like
example. Again, brilliant writing.
yeah, oh yeah, it's based on a brilliant movie, so
Yeah.
they just adapted it in a way that had its own voice and it really stood out. Um, Back to Psycho though, did you know that Alfred Hitchcock is the one actually using the knife in that scene? Because they couldn't get the scene right, and he was like, "No, like this," and they couldn't get, and he's like, "I'll just do it," and he did the knife.
Really?
Yeah,
I never knew that.
that's right. That's right.
I thought it was his mother. I thought it was Norman's mother the whole time.
No, no, no. So, anyone listening, that's what we call a joke.
I,
Just, I will bring back Alfred Hitchcock to lead us back to the Schindler's List Holocaust. Did you know he filmed a documentary on the Holocaust and was in the camps? And there's a movie like Alfred Hitchcock went to those camps and they let him film because he was like an
wow.
American director, and they were like, we have nothing to be ashamed of. Like, yeah, film it. Like,
Wow.
and there's like tons of footage of it. It was never released, but it's a thing. You could look it up and watch it. Most of it's on YouTube, and it's
Wow.
all
That's
black and white.
frightening.
It's
That's actually frightening.
horrifying. It's
Right, right.
horrifying. But he makes great movies. Anyway, just, now obviously writing a script is much different than writing a novel because it's a different process. There's different points of view. In scripts, you don't really have what's known as narrative. You have what's known as action blocks, which dictates what we physically have to see on the screen. So you don't have to write it in a way where it's like this purple prose or anything. You could just be like, they walk over here and they have a thing,
Right.
whereas in you want to show a little bit more than tell and let people be immersed. Have you ever thought of writing a novel and utilizing because you're going from I believe comedy is screenwriting, it's
Yes.
stage writing. It's a style of it's just instead of two people in a room, it's one person, right?
Right.
Have you ever had that itch where you're like, let me see if I could write a novel?
I've been writing, I don't know if you want to call it a novel, but I've been writing this book forever. It's called Finding Funny in a Humorless World. And it's about comedy, basically, about how to make your life happier through comedy, basically.
Yeah.
And I've been writing it forever. And I don't know, I write it and then I put it down and I feel like it's been done before. I get into that trap of, oh, this has been done already. I want it to be new and original, and I'm having trouble with it. But like an actual novel with people, I I always end up going back to the play format.
Yeah.
I like the back and forth. I don't know the format. And I took a writing class on writing a novel. And I find the more classes I take, or the more YouTube stuff I watch, or the more books I read, or it's even worse, the less inspired I become. I just get to a point where I'm like, oh, this is too hard. So like
It
it's
needs to
easy
be a
for me to
plot.
give it. It's a terrible thing, but it's like it's so easy to go, I don't want to do that. It's like
Look, I mean, I used to think like that a long time ago, and
yeah,
when I'd get hired and I didn't even think of outlining. I was just like, let me write as a pantser. Let me just get the script out. Let me get the story out, whatever. And I had this client. It was like, hey, before you write the script, can you send me an outline? I was like, an outline? Like my brain was like, what is that? And it was one of my first clients to ask for an outline. And I ended up researching it, and and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever because you can focus study on beats. So like,
right,
what is the ordinary world? And it works for screenplay too, because how do we introduce the world? Well, the ordinary world is who the characters are, their motivations, setting up the rules, maybe the promise of the story, things like, and all these elements could be whatever you want them to be, but just understanding like, oh, if I use this formula to present that however I want, because my voice is the story, the plot is, there's only 7 plots you can tell in the world, like there's only 7. So learning outline lingo and learning like story beats, that changed the way I approached it. And I ended up actually getting more work because of the way I was able to inform a client or inform my own works of those beats. So it wasn't just like they had to read the story. Like I can actually have a conversation about the structure, and
Wow, that's
that did
great.
that did change things for me.
See, maybe
So
that's what I need to do. You're right. I mean, I'm not good at structure, and it's funny because as a profession, I've been an accountant, and that's all about structure. Yet in the creative world, I can't get that discipline of
yeah,
taking it slow and methodically doing it. It's just like I'm all over the place, and I tend to get frustrated, and I just quit. And it's very bad, but I'm just being honest. It's like what happens. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll do this instead. But that's a creative person's problem. They tend
yeah,
to all over the place. At the
or
same
ADHD.
that, yeah, I do need to like really approach it like,
Yeah,
because I know yeah, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I know I have a talent for these things. And the stuff that I've written, people have told me this is really good. It's like I'm not writing crap, I'm
yeah.
writing well, but I'm just not disciplined enough and structured enough to do it the right way. And
I
I
agree
it
with
kind of,
you. That is a skill unto itself. Like being
yeah,
creative, like creative people are going to be creative, whether they have a system or not. They're just like you said, they're going to start something and they get inspired, and it's easy for them to just kind of let it out, but it's hard for them to maintain discipline. And
right.
one of my somebody had asked me, like I had already been a writer for a while, and they were like, "Well, how do you really have a job as a writer? Like, isn't it difficult? You got to be inspired, right?" And I go, "No, they pay me to be inspired. My job isn't to wait for inspiration. My job is to cash the check, and then I have to produce." And
That's
you
that's good. See, I
right?
don't have that luxury, and maybe that's a problem too. If I had to do it, see, that's very true. Like if you have to do something,
Yeah.
you do it. But if you don't have to do it, they're just like, maybe I'll
We,
do it tomorrow. Jerry Seinfeld, who I adore, said something. I keep going back to these
yeah, no,
guys.
no, go ahead. I've never heard of them, so tell me.
Extremely intelligent. The movie Comedian. I don't know if you
Oh
saw it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, with Tom Hanks
There's
too. Oh
one.
no, the actual
No, the
comedian.
actual it's
Yeah,
about
where he
Jerry
talked about
Seinfeld
his yeah,
starting over. He quit the show and he started over writing new
yeah.
jokes.
He threw everything out.
Right. And one thing he said, which I thought was brilliant, is he said he used to be lazy. He'd be like, yeah, I wrote a joke today. Yeah, maybe I'll write one tomorrow. Maybe I'll write one next week. He had that same attitude we all have. And one day he was sitting out and he never had a real job. His
Yeah,
parents supported him. He's sitting out on his front stoop in the city because he's going to the comic strip and, not making any money, flipping burgers for stage time,
yeah,
whatever. And he wants to do better. And he's like getting disenchanted with the whole thing. He's in the delusional stage. And he saw these construction workers going back to work from lunch. And he
yeah,
said, look at these guys. And they look so unhappy. They work all day, they go to lunch, and they go back to work, and they're miserable. I have the greatest job in the world, and I'm not doing that. So, you know what? Starting tomorrow, I'm going to go to work. And he
yeah,
woke up and he made like out. He worked from 9 to 12, took a break, went back to work, and he treated it like a job.
yeah.
And that's tremendous. And that's the right way to do it. And I don't know, I'm not going to do it, but it's a great idea.
My only amendment to that is the job isn't necessarily only writing, and you know his job happened at night actually. So he would
Right.
do the writing, which is the creative part. Anyone could write. It doesn't make you any money to write, but it was him going to clubs and networking. It was him building his
Of
brand
course.
value. It was him
Yes.
building. So that's his actual job that people don't think about. They don't. No, my writing's going to make me famous. And then we have a talented comedian like you, and you're saying, as we said, why I know I'm good. Why am I where I am? And it's like, well, talent means nothing if you're not successful. And once you're successful, you can create longevity with the talent. because success is network market practice. Success is about being around people. Success is about, right. So,
You're right.
I was just watching this great interview with Andy Richter, and Andy Richter's a writer, and he was also the co-host on
Conan
whatchamacallit,
O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien. And how did he get the gig? Well, he actually was at a barbecue for Bob Odenkirk, and Conan O'Brien and Richter were there, but they never met each other. 3 weeks later, the writer and comedian that was the head writer for the Conan O'Brien show that he just got hired as the host. His friend, Andy Richter's friend, was the guy who does the comic The Insult Dog,
Oh, I know his
and he
name. I can't think of it.
yeah, and he was the
Schmiegel,
head,
Schmiegel, Robert
Schmiegel,
Schmiegel.
Schmiegel,
Yeah.
and he's the head writer, and he's like, "Hey, Conan, you got to meet my buddy Andy. He'd be an excellent writer." And they ended up getting lunch, and they hit it off. And then, he obviously had to write a pack, like a promote a packet, which basically can you write skits and stuff like that. And but Conan was like, hire that guy, and they were like, we still need a packet because you're new, you don't have any really pull. So, but they still were like, all right, if you like him and it's good stuff. And then he ended up becoming, but all that's networking.
Yeah.
Bob Odenkirk brought people together. He was friends with the Insult Comic Dog writer comic. That guy was friends with Conan. That guy got a job, and he elevated his friend. And we'll go back to our comedy scene on Long Island. No one on Long Island is going to elevate one another. They're going to
No.
be like, how does this opportunity help me? Oh, it doesn't? Well, then I'm going to ignore it and not even refer any of my friends who could particularly be useful for that. And that's disheartening.
Yeah, you're right.
As a
Yeah,
process.
it's a very narcissistic, me only, screw you thing.
That's
I
right.
know it's terrible. It's really terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're right. No, you're right. And I don't do it. It's bad. But I don't network nearly enough. I used to. Um, I don't know. It's just you're right. No, 100%.
Yeah.
And you gave me advice once a long time ago, and I loved it. You told me talk to people and don't ask for something.
Correct. Yeah.
Like just let them know, hey, how you been? Haven't spoken to you in a while.
Yep.
How's everything going? Don't say, can you do me a favor?
Exactly.
Just say hello. And 100%. And that worked for me. I used to get a lot of press. I mean, it's hard now with Newsday but I used to get a lot of press. And I used that type even before you said it, but that was my thing. I would just be like, hey, I love that article you wrote. And nothing thrills a writer more than getting from some outside person that they don't know, I really like that. That was really great. And they're like, wow, thank you so much. Because that's why they do it. And then like a couple of weeks later, how's it going? And you're developing a relationship with them.
Yep.
It's like getting in on the ground. And then when you need something from them, you already have a foundation. You're not just coming out of nowhere. Hey, can you write an article about me? They're going to be like, who the hell are you? But now it's like, oh, Stevie G, how you been? You've already developed, and that's what you're talking
Correct.
about, that
Yep.
You've created a ground floor, whereas these people are very influential, and they could bring you somewhere, and now they know you. And they don't know you for what you're asking for. They know you as a personal relationship, and now you can go in and say, boom, and you get in, and it works.
And another element to that is you have to build your value sets, right? So a value set is like your pull or your influence or, and in that situation, when you build your press, what you do is you get your interviews, you build your relationships, and then you go to them, hey, I have this guy or girl or whatever who is a comedian that I work with all the time. I think they'd be a great interview for you. And then you introduce them, and then you become the person with that value set. You have influence, you have negotiation ability, you have it, and then people want to get you involved because they know you come with value, and it's therefore a value set. And that's how you not only build your relationships, but you start creating an involved environment, a community, a circle of influence, and a table where you can lead, follow, and advise, where everybody's like, and you'll find the people that are right for your table because, again, are they narcissists and there for themselves, or are they, and using you for your resources, or are they adding value to those tables? And, it's a different process, but.
I like that a lot. That makes perfect sense. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's why I used to teach that.
No, it's good. It's really good. And it's so simple, it feels like it's just common sense, but
Yeah.
we just don't do it for various reasons: laziness, insecurity, ego, all of those things.
Yeah. I mean, you said it earlier. It comes down to like, I'm so good. Why am I not getting
I know I
anywhere?
shouldn't have said that.
No, what you said is absolutely fine because it's good for people to hear that there are others that feel that way.
Yeah,
And the brain change is it's not about me. It's about the people around me because
right.
again, you write a book or a play or a joke and you put it on the table and no one will ever see it. But the work is I need someone to know that I exist. I need to know that other people exist. So people are the fuel for your success. Like you have to get in front of people, therefore they're important, and people have to get behind you, therefore they're important, and then you have to help the people to your left and the right. And something that I learned in the writing community, the acting community, is a lot of actors always said, "Man, I can't wait till I'm in a movie or whatever, and I'm working with a Robert De Niro." And I would always tell them, I go, "You realize you're sitting next to the next Robert De Niro?" And they're like, "Who? Bill?" And they're like, "Robert De Niro was a nobody.
Mhm.
And so was Joe Pesci, and so was Martin Scorsese, and so was everybody that is a part of that circle that do all the films that they do.
Mhm.
They were nobodies." And they would just sit there and go, "Nah, I don't know. I want to work because that'll help my career." Yes, working with Robert De Niro will not help your career because they're not looking at you; they're looking at Robert De Niro, right? So you want to start building your Seth Rogen team, your Adam Sandler team. And people don't think like that. But Martin Scorsese built his team, and it
Yeah.
was a team of nobodies, including Martin Scorsese, the governor, right? So I always tried to push that on comedians, especially the ones I was around. I mean, even when I did Top of the Bottom Pile, we didn't perform for a year. That was my rule. I was like, we're not going to perform because if we perform, we're going to be judged on the merit of our material that we're working anyway. So let's just build relationships. Within 6 months, APA management contacted us and says people are talking about you. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, good. Because we were just helping people. We were going to shows. We were supporting others. We were promoting others. We were just a presence
Mhm.
in that world. And every time we showed up, they go, "Hey, it's the top guys. It's the top guys. It's the, blah, blah, blah." Right. And that's what led to so much movement so quickly. And then obviously we disbanded for multiple reasons. But, I got cancer and all this stuff. But like,
Oh yeah, how you doing? I remember hearing about that.
oh yeah, yeah. In
Okay.
2016, I got. Yeah, I was pretty bad. Apparently, I
Yeah.
had it for 2.5 years. I didn't know, but I was getting like weaker and weaker. I was like,
Oh wow.
and doctors were like, "It's just depression." I was like, "I don't
Mhm.
know." It's like my body was literally going, "You're dying," you know that? And they were like, "No, your body doesn't tell you that." And then
But you're good now.
yeah, I'm good now. I'm ish
Good.
ish.
Okay.
I have growths in my lungs, but they're being monitored, so
Okay.
they're not worried per se, but they're small enough to not be concerned, but large enough to be like, we need to look at that every once in a while.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, I'm good. I'm healthy.
Good. Good. Glad to hear it, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
How we doing on time?
Well, we can go if you need to go. I know you have television on back there. What are you watching?
Oh, it's just a music thing. I shut it off. I just got background music, but
Oh,
I do have to get back to my real job.
you got a real job. What does it? What
Well,
does the professional comedian do for a real job?
here's the funny thing: is I'm semi-retired, and I tell people I work 24/7. It takes me 7 days to work 24 hours, and that's 100% true. I'm working part time, like a few hours a day. I have it's like freelance bookkeeping kind of
Okay. Oh yeah,
low
yeah,
level.
yeah,
I was a
yeah,
controller and a CFO and all that stuff,
yeah.
and I don't want to do that anymore. I like just the basic. It's the accounting equivalent of the guy at King Cullen pushing the wagons together. You know what I mean? Simple. I don't want to think too much. I don't want to write my name on things. I
Yeah.
don't want to look at contracts. I just give me the easy stuff. And I like it. And they're paying me well. And I got 4 clients. One guy I
Okay.
go once a month, another guy I go once a week, another one twice a week. And and I'm just keeping their book straight, and I enjoy it. It's fun. It's like,
That's what it's
it's
about.
easy, and
Yeah,
it's weird because I'm working on contract, so there's a whole level of respect that I never had before as an employee. Because when you're an employee, it's like, hey, you went to lunch and you got back 5 minutes late. Where were you? It's like there's none of that. I
yeah,
walk in and they're like so glad. Oh, he's here. Like I'm a hero. And I'm like, this is very strange. Why are you? Why do you love me?
yeah. The
You know?
IRS just showed up. We need to
Yeah.
talk to
Well,
you.
that's a different issue. But because I'm the outside guy now. I have this new. You were talking about value.
That's
I
right.
have a value. I'm bringing my skills to them from the outside. So all of a sudden, I'm like the
Yeah,
savior. I come in like I'm
yeah.
here. Whereas before, when you're in the soup with them, they're like you're just another cog in this machine.
Just a cog. Well, and
Yes.
just for the audience listening, his value set in that situation would be his expertise. He has influence over his expertise. No, seriously, like
Yeah.
that's there's a day one writer, and there's I've been doing this for 15 years writer. It's not the writing that makes them have a value set. It's the expertise and
Right.
understanding the how to kind of
Exactly. So I can walk in and I get hired to clean up messes because people don't really need me if everything's going well.
yeah.
And they all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, there's a mess. Come in here." And when you walk into a mess, you look like a hero because you're only fixing things. It's only getting better. So it's fun because I'm like, "Oh, look, I did this," and they're like, "Oh, wow, that's great." It's like,
Do you
okay.
ever fix it just enough where you mess up small things so they have to keep bringing you?
So I can keep getting paid? No,
Yeah.
I don't do that. I
I didn't
could,
see
but
this.
yeah, that's called consultants who justify their existence. I've run into those guys.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah,
sense.
I don't do that. If I feel I've done enough, I've even finished with clients and said, "Look, I'm done. You really don't need me. You can hire a bookkeeper for $20 an hour to
Yeah.
continue what I've done." And they're like, "Really? You're not going to keep billing me?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that to you. I don't need to. And I don't need to keep doing this. I'll do another job instead. I don't need to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy working 20.
Forget
So
that
it gives
life.
me a little free time to do other things, which I'm not doing because I'm lazy now. I just sit around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Working
lazy.
40 hours a week. Ugh.
Oh,
I would never again. I just,
I did it a long time and yeah, it was brutal.
yeah. Yeah.
And I don't have to travel. There's no like I do something from home. It's just phenomenal. I'm really happy.
I stopped in my 20s working like a job. And
Oh,
like,
good for you.
I, I sometimes forget. I dated a girl and she's like, we were together for some time and she's like,
Was that little redhead you were with in Holbrook?
well, I don't want to give details because I'm about to say a negative, but maybe.
No,
But she
maybe. I remember.
oh, I've had to be honest, I've had multiple redheads in my life. I have
Oh, okay. Well,
I
I
am
remember one. That's all I
yeah,
saw.
no,
That's
I had I
She was memorable.
yeah, no, yes, she was, yeah. But like I didn't really work because I didn't have to.
Right.
Like I was
That's
not.
good.
I had set myself up, and she'd always be like, "Have to go to work," and then she'd come home angry that she had to work, and she's like, "What did you do today?" And I'm like, "I
Hmm.
don't know. I talk to people." like,
I know.
and they don't get it.
No.
When you're self-employed and you work at home and you're in the entertainment industry, like you don't work a normal job. You don't work 9 to 5. You work when people are at the clubs. You work when you're on set because, and again, I'm not working on set because I'm acting. I'm working on set because I'm networking and I'm marketing
Right.
myself and I'm learning the industry. And when someone goes to work 9 to 5 and they're like sweating, and then they come home and you're like, I gotta go. They're like,
Mhm.
what are you? All you're doing is hanging out with people, and you're like, yeah, that's why I pay the bills.
Yeah.
And But before you go, Stevie,
Yeah.
I ask everyone the same question. I'm gonna put it on the screen, but I'm gonna read it because it's also an audio show, and just answer it. All right. What is one piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through yourself or someone else, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process?
One piece of advice you discovered about writing, either through someone else or yourself, that completely changed the way you approach the writing process. I know it's a tough question. That completely changed the way you approach the writing process.
For example, when I discovered outlining, that was something I discovered through
Right, right,
myself
which you
that changed.
discussed
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
Um, for me, I think it was just getting it out of my head. I mean, I think my daughter. I think I'm going to use my daughter as an example. I have the greatest compliment. She's 38 now. She's probably your age. I don't know. You're 45, but she's
yeah,
getting there. We always had a great relationship because we hung out a lot together. My wife would go shopping and we would hang out, walk around the mall. And I would just like throw out like crazy ideas at her. And she got it. And she not only got it, but she like inspired me in ways where she would add to it because she's very creative also. So it was nice to have her. It's nice to have a sounding board. I think that's what that's what I always needed and I always thrived on. Having somebody that I could say, what do you think of this idea? And they like it. And then I come up, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Throughout my life, I've discovered people like that just inspired me immediately. Like the guy who I wrote when I wrote my play called Vampires Suck, about a vampire that doesn't suck. It was about a dysfunctional vampire that doesn't suck.
yeah,
So he's biting the neck and he's not getting enough blood and he's starving, but he can't starve to death because they're immortal. So he's just starving eternity. So
yeah.
that's like a horrible existence. So he seeks the help of a psychiatrist to help him. So that's the comedy of it, but it's really a tragedy. But I got that inspiration from a guy I worked with in a play, and he looked very like this very tall and slick back hair. And I said, "You look like a vampire." And he says, "Yeah, I don't like vampires. They always suck. I wish there would be a vampire that didn't suck." And I was like, "That's brilliant." And he goes, "I think vampires suck." Oh, that's what he said. "I think vampires suck." I said, "Well, isn't that the whole idea? It's not like there's a vampire that doesn't suck." And the light bulb went off. So, I think it's those light bulb moments
Yeah.
that I discovered I like. And it's usually from people. Like you said, now it's like I connect. I don't connect with everybody, but sometimes there's like a person, and I don't know if it's a divine intervention thing, if you believe in that kind of thing, but you ever meet somebody and you like immediately have that connection and you feel like you've known them your whole life.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And those are the people that have inspired me throughout my life in my writing. So I could point to a specific person and say, yeah, Stuart or my daughter or Cynthia. Those are the people that make me better at what I do instead of shutting me out.
And that's great. And
No, you can't do that. It's so hard. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Sometimes when you talk to people in the business, they destroy you.
oh yeah, yeah.
You're in the business. What do you think of this idea? This, you don't want to do that. It's too hard. Okay, thanks.
Too much work. Too much work.
Yeah. Sometimes I have the horrible, horrible habit of asking people until I hear something negative and then I could stop. It's
My
like I look
favorite.
for reasons to not do it. What a
Yeah.
horrible thing.
What about reasons to do it and how to do it and like what's the
Exactly.
solution? How do we think outside
That's
the box? Yeah.
that's beautiful. And it's people that I connect with that I know and love
Yeah.
that do that for me. It's not like you said, the outline. I could read a book forever and still not. But if someone hits me over the head, the light bulb goes up and I go, yeah, that'll work.
I
That's
remember in the comedy scene, there was one rule. If a comic thought your joke was funny, throw it out. If they said it was terrible, work on it. Because it means it was good.
That's interesting way to put it. No, yeah, I don't like bouncing jokes off comics because they will
Yeah.
always have something like, that's hacky. Somebody else does that. Like we said earlier,
Yeah.
I can't work with comics. It's very hard.
Especially if they have a different style and voice as you, where they're just like,
Yeah,
I
they
don't
just
understand. Why are you going that way?
yeah, it's just hard. It's competition.
Oh.
It's hard to work with competition. I like working with people that have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I
That's a
like
different
immersive environments. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different way you think, and I love what you're doing. I love your way of your thinking. I
Yeah.
wish I could do that, and I probably can, but just a matter of doing it.
Well, you
Getting
you
up
saw
there.
how my theater was. It was very like my door
Yeah,
was always open to people. I was
I
always
loved it.
helpful. Yeah. So, but before we go, obviously, how keep in mind this is also audio, not just video. So, spell out your name or anything that's spelly. Tell people how they can find you, and whatever.
All right, sure. Yeah, it's my website is www.steviegb, Steviegb, And I'm on Facebook, Stevie GB Comedy. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really use it. And I'm not really on Instagram or TikTok. I don't do any of that stuff. But yeah, pretty much Facebook, and I post my shows there, and I have some followers that
All
come see
right.
me.
Yeah, some followers. Look, you need followers until you have to go to the bathroom. Then you're like, hey,
Don't follow me.
yeah, don't follow. This is private time,
I do have followers. It's fun. I always wonder, like, why do you, I want to say to them, why do you keep coming to see me? Aren't you tired of me? But they're not. They come and I'm happy to see them. So I do have a pretty good gang. Not a lot, maybe 20 that come to a lot of my shows, which is good. I mean, I'm not a bringer. I'm a follower. I have followers. I don't have bringers. I have followers.
Which is good. Those,
Yeah.
you don't want to be like, hey, please come to my show. You want people to
No,
go,
no.
oh, he's playing a show.
Right. Where are you going to be next? And they actually show up.
Yeah.
Whoa, you actually showed up.
Like,
Well, I don't even have to tell them they show up, which is even nicer.
Just put it on your website, and people are like,
yeah,
I didn't.
They follow me. It's like, what I'm doing? Yeah, we watch you all the time.
You need that. All right, Stevie, thanks for being on the show. I'm gonna do my final thought, do the outro, and then
Thanks for having me, buddy. I love you.
Oh, I love you, man, and not because you wore a hat. I just want to put that.
This is why I wear a hat. See, that explains.
I'm getting there too.
Yeah.
I'm the only one in my family with hair.
It's getting a little high on you there. I see it. It's coming.
Oh, you see it? Oh, you got that? Yeah. Well, I actually kind of always had that, but everyone else is just.
Still look good, man. You look good.
Yeah, I paid the devil a couple of dollars.
It's always a pleasure. I will never ever forget what you did for me at the Rose Theater. I mean, I workshopped my show there, and I appreciated it to no end. And I got cranky sometimes. I know. I was like, Tom, there's no people out there, and then I realized it wasn't about that. It was about working the show, and you helped me do that. Your door was open, and I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, I live by my philosophy. I got to be the thing I believe in, and
and you do. You're true to your word, and you're a good man.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so
much. I
wish
you all the health and happiness.
Wow. You know what? I'll take it, and I wish you the same.
Thanks, buddy.
No more funerals, more happy birthdays.
Exactly.
All right. So the final thought for today, based on the conversation, and the ending was really thanks Stevie GB for telling me such a beautiful thing. And you know what? I'm going to work off of that for the final thought. Is you got to find your tribe. You got to find the people that inspire you, don't dissuade you. If you come up with an idea that seems too hard, like Tom Cruise said in an interview, I have this trick I want to do. It's going to be on a building, and I'm going to be flying around. And the stunt coordinator said, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. So Tom Cruise said to his next stunt coordinator, how do we do this? And they found a solution. And that's the thing. You want to be around people that hold you accountable and also, bring you back down to reality. But at the same time, they work through ideas. They inspire ideas. They try to find ways around the walls, because remember, there are no walls. We create them, so we can go around them, over them, under them, through them. If you have enough people, they can lift you up and get you up, and then you pull people over. The idea is to find your tribe. Find the people that you can help, and find the people that can help you creatively, inspirationally, maybe even career-wise. Surround yourself with good people, because remember, the 5 people you hang out with the most become the world you live in. All right, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for watching. This is the final episode to season 3. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and the podcast and everything else. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Love you all. Bye.